Hello, everyone. Since next week is going to be the last week of classes, I have decided that the last module, which is module 8, is going to be an audio lecture instead of the usual written module, so that you'll have the time to reflect on the lecture rather than just keep on reading. Okay, the last lecture, before I do that, again, I would like to remind each and every one of you not to submit your early modules, more than once, because it's very difficult to go back to the date of submissions, and then chances are you're going to submit it twice or thrice, and I will be grading them twice or thrice, and it's just a waste of time. You will save me time if you just submit it once, and don't worry about it because I'm always have the time to check on them. Okay, especially that there's not gonna be any final examination for this class. That would mean I have enough time to check on the individual submissions and also the group submissions in the recent modules. Okay, and again, do not resend your modules more than once, even if it has been submitted in during the early part of the semester. Okay, I've already started checking on the LNU email address. Okay, and next, for those of you who have already submitted their grades via FB, in the FB post, please edit your post if you have received new grades, okay, for those modules that have not been graded. So for those no grade, as I have mentioned previously, and you have already received the new grade, please indicate the corresponding grade. All right. You can do the editing during the final examination week, because hopefully by then all the grades will have been rated already so that I can compute your final grade. Okay. The last lecture for this subject is really about this is like a synopsis of the entire course on Rizal with what they call this, focus on the obsolescence of Rizal. Obsolescence meaning it asks the question whether Rizal is obsolete or it's no longer valid or it's no longer relevant in today's situations. That the article on obsolescence of Rizal was first introduced by the historian in the name of Renato Constantino, okay, a historian who questioned colonial policies and foreign policies of the country, and he urged Filipinos to really assert their national identity. And it was through Rizal that he, rallied his thoughts on community consciousness as a nationalist feeling. Okay, when according to Constantino, when you talk about Rizal as obsolete, it doesn't mean that it's no longer relevant or not no longer important in today's what's it called challenges. He's actually trying to depict an idea of going beyond, okay, extending our consciousness beyond what Jose Rizal has been talking about. For example, on the idea of preserving the national language, okay, the Filipino language. During the time of Rizal, he was trying to protect Filipino language against the Spanish, okay, language, which was dominating in the Philippine country. But in the colonial policy of Spain, okay, there were so many islands that were scattered all over the Philippines, being an archipelago, so that the what they call this the spread of the Spanish language was also not uniformly done, because far-flung areas were not reached by colonial policy, no, especially in the Mindanao. Okay, so for example, while the centralized government of Spain was in Manila, okay, this bandits, okay, or these renegade, what you call this, Filipinos who tried to mock Spanish colonial policy, ran away, and then in doing so, they actually migrated from Luzon to Visayas, and the last part was Mindanao, so that the colonial policy was not unified in terms of national language. So in Renato Constantino is trying to assert a sense of Filipino identity in the quest for nationalist goals by trying to stay away from colonial mentality. It's not only about language per se, but also in the cultural aspect, in the sensibility of the Filipinos. Okay, the idea of obsolescence, okay, or the idea of rejection is not altogether to be taken literally, no. It is going beyond, okay, going beyond, meaning to say, when you study Rizal, you try to extend the consciousness in today's challenges, okay. For example, our concept of heroism, okay, in today's society is no longer the same as it was during the time of Rizal. Okay, when it was originally thought of as a nationalist sentiment by Rizal, it was actually a question of whether there was a Filipino country or not. No, we have previously discussed that the first Filipino, being Jose Rizal, tried to unite the Filipinos. No, but it was also trying to tell us that there was no Filipinism, there was no nation at all before Rizal articulated this sentiment, because the Philippines was a scattered country, a scattered, there were tribal unities, tribal unifications, and even tribal wars. Okay, and the concept of a nation was not existent after all, no. Nevertheless, it is trying to tell us that with this kind of thinking of a nationalist, agenda of unity and passion and patriotism, we are asking ourselves, okay, how far are we supposed, or how deep are we supposed to love our country, okay? Is loving the country rejecting any hint of, let's say, Western culture, Western appropriation, things like that. When there is an exchange of culture through arts, through music, through economics, does that mean that we are supposed to reject any foreign interference or encroachment? These are questions that are going beyond, okay, the original intent of what is heroism. Is heroism always have to be, does it always have to be in the service of the country? Do you have to be a martyr always to die for a country in order to be called a hero? Not necessarily so, because in today's society, heroism is also what you call this, defined in our everyday, struggles. When we survive from COVID maladies, when there are so many quarantine procedures that we have to follow, okay, we are also heroes in our own respect, in our own right, okay. And that is a going beyond the original intent of Jose Rizal's heroism. So it asks us, okay, in our sense of what heroism is, it it asks us what is our personal, okay, point of view of heroism in the smallest way that we can, but meaningful, okay. When we are obeying our parents, when we are trying to follow the morals of a nation, we are also heroes in that sense. Especially during the pandemic, we have our medical heroes, okay, the frontliners who are saving us literally, day in and day out, in trying to save us from the wrath of COVID. Okay, so heroism is defined and contextualized in many, many ways according to our own interpretation and according to the situations that we are faced in. Okay, so in other words, the meanings and definitions and the significance of heroism extends beyond the walls, okay, of the Spanish colonization policy. No, We can even ask ourselves, has there been a concept of heroism before Jose Rizal? Naturally, there was, no? In the global village, for instance, when the so-called scattered, okay, natives, okay, of the country had had wars and they were trying to protect their interests as a community, they also had their own heroes in their own respective barangays in the datos, in the pre-colonial Philippine setting, who also exhibited some form of leadership. And when you're a leader, you also embody the sense of heroism in you, in the kind of service that you have to give to your members of your jurisdiction, or the people who are part of your dominion. Okay. Another aspect of the question of Jose Rizal's obsolescence is in the manner of um, what inculcating upon us the values. Okay, aside from heroism, the values of democracy. Okay, in today's society, for instance, with the affluence of technology. I mean, affordance of technology, technological affordance, meaning to say, because of the disposal of information right before our eyes. Okay, when we have a barrage of information through the internet, through the social media, okay, there is a very, very democratic space of engagement, of understanding, and also misunderstandings. Okay, this technological, revolution is our sense of freedom of information that we try to maximize. But coupled with this freedom of information is our sense of responsibility in the manner that this information will serve our needs. Okay, so the preponderance, or this immensity of information that is no longer relevant to our simple ways of doing things, they become a nuisance. They become That's why we have fake news. We have unnecessary information, because they no longer serve the needs that are relevant for us. But in this analysis, we also try to ask the question: how does this democratic way of engagement, tries to inculcate the value of responsibility for other people? When we have information are no longer that is no longer important to us, it doesn't mean that it is not important for the others. So there is this question of the self and the other. Now, if you have to unite the differences, okay, if you have to balance the self indulgence with that of the society, then there is such a thing as homostatic balance, or an agreement wherein this information will really serve the society in general, even if it doesn't serve us, not as an individual entity. Nevertheless, okay, this concept of democracy was also an indirect what passion, or you may say passion. When Rizal was trying to inculcate upon the idea of nationalism, of freedom from the bondage of Spain, from the tyranny of, or brutality or atrocity of Spain, he was actually encouraging the idea of democracy that has been already in the global scenario during the time of Jose Rizal. Okay, so these ideas of democracy, nationalism, love for the country, things like that, they are contextualized now in today's societies in the manner that we see these concepts are relevant to us or not. So there is no such thing as absolute obsolescence. There's only such a thing as a going beyond, okay, or trying to extend the meanings according to the present situation. Okay, in module 7, we talked about Rizalista, okay, Rizalista, which prophesies to Sarisal as a demigod, okay, trying to catapult him into godly powers, okay, the supernatural powers of Sarisal, as exemplified in the Amang Doctor that you have read in module 7. This is a metaphor, meaning to say this is an allegorical statement that should not be taken literally. Although there have been churches that were resurrected, after Rizal's death, prophesizing him as a symbol of divinity and so on and so forth, and worshiping him as a demigod, just like any other saint. Okay, it is also an affront to our Christian faith because we only worship the divine power. Now, for Jose Rizal as a human being who died, was not supposed to be worshipped as a demigod. Okay, but in the tales of Bernardo Carpio, okay, in our earlier modules, that also prophesied to Jose Rizal with this immense power, physical power. It creates this sense of a higher being, okay, that is not normal, in the sense that it that higher being is beyond our it's sort of beyond our reach. We try to worship the person, we try to prophesize the person, and we try to what you call this, ask for forgiveness on all sorts of what you call this, benevolence and this understanding, trying to repent for our sins. This is the same way that we interact with our religion. When we talk to God, when we ask for forgiveness, we also have the same notion of what Rizalista was really talking about, okay, in trying to promulgate, okay, certain laws of the church, and at the same time believing in these laws as existential proceedings, for that matter. Okay, so module 8, for this conclusion of the semester, is just a summative statement about the entire course that we have discussed. No, if you noticed, the readings that have been given to you were actually a product of my own analysis. Okay, because I didn't want you to be burdened with lengthy readings. Um, the essays were critical essays that are college level essays. They're not the usual result readings that you have been accustomed to, because the notion of the readings of Jose Rizal as a course, is a higher consciousness, no? A critical assessment, a critical evaluation of the readings of the life and works of Jose Rizal, for that matter. Okay, so once again, the whole of this semester has been that kind of a higher sense of consciousness in understanding Jose Rizal. As a final note, it asks us also, how was the, let's say, the last farewell of Jose Rizal? Okay, the 14 stanza poetry that was written just before his death. How was it become relevant also in our struggles for today? We have our sense of mortality, okay, is already being put to question due to this, death as a result of this pandemic. What is our it as it poses the question of our sense of immortality, in the sense that what legacy, for instance, do we have? Do we live on earth, as we journey on to the next life? Is it our education? Is it our responsibility? Is it our intellectual prowess, the wisdom that we have acquired in our life? Is that something that we can leave behind while we journey into the next life? And um, the last farewell of Rizal asks this question about the death being the resting place. Okay, when you die, you literally rest, and we don't know what happens actually when you're resting. Do you actually go to another phase in life, or is it a heavenly kind of life? Is that eternity as promised by Christianity? Okay, we have to have a sense of openness also, because our Christian doctrines are telling us the heavenly life, that is the afterlife, beyond our mundane or earthly life. But that is Christian. What about the points of view of the Muslims? What about the points of view of other religions who will have uh, another point of view of death and rebirth, things like that? So, nevertheless, um, the last farewell is supposed to be another consciousness of going beyond, okay, thinking beyond the normal or the physical meanings of what death is all about. Okay, these are realizations that each one of us must confront ourselves with in trying to live up to the expectations of our selves and the surrounding community that we live in. Okay, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead this class in these most disturbing times. Okay, the pandemic has really created a lot of challenges, and you have also experienced many challenges. As apart from the subject, you have also your personal problems, um, but it's part of our existence. We survive. We try to rise above the challenges. Okay, so there is, as a conclusion, there is no more um, final exam for this subject. Okay, uh, only that you I will ask again to for the class to submit a this time an individual paper as a reflection. Okay, a reflection on any topic that I have covered in module 8 in this lecture. Okay, you can expound on that, a maximum of just 500 words. Okay, and then post your answer on the email. Okay, the olobia leoncio 69 at gmail.com. That is your final modular assessment for this subject. There's no final exam. The deadline for the submission of this reflection, a 500 word essay, will be during the final exam week. Okay, so just follow the schedule. I think it's a week after next week. Okay, and finish all your submissions. Make sure that you don't lack any part of the module, and check your submissions. Make sure that those that have not been graded will be edited already with the grades, because I'm continually grading your work up to the time when your final exam is already over. So you can wait until the final exam week when you edit your submission on the FB page. Okay, have a good one.